one of the alpha dogs on a Ravens team that won a Super Bowl, Bernard Pollard, joins us now on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Bernard, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. I'm going to let G sort of introduce you and really talk about how this appearance came to be and what you're here to talk about.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. You know, we've been contacted by a lot of individuals. You were one of the first ones to retweet. I guess I wouldn't call it a rant. I would just call it more of a passionately describing what I was upset about. And so, Bernard was one of the first people to actually almost co-sign that and talk a little bit about and co-sign what I was saying, because he obviously he's a former player involved in the league so much. And I think what happened was it was so much groundswell because of the fact that these are professional players and they've lived it, they've breathed it, and they this was something that I think a lot of people thought about. I just happened to be one person who said it and it just caught fire. So Bernard, thank you so much for coming on to the show, talking about your experience and talking about what you've gone through in terms of that. When I said what I said, are there any NFL players that are saying that behind closed doors, or is that just something that people keep to themselves, where it's just like they understand what it is, but they don't say anything?
I think one of the big things, and man, I appreciate you for expressing yourself and being, I don't want to say vulnerable, but being vocal. I was laughing after the fact because I was like, man, it looked like you had some balled up homework paper spitting facts. And so it was hilarious, laughing at that. But I think, so many people need to hear those important things. And and if you look at it, after the fact, and nothing against the Buffalo Bills or whatever it may be, but what they did as far as with his contract, if the news is true, what they did with his contract and how they settled and made that thing possible for him to still continue to earn his money, that's big. But once again, I think so many people, fans and the high dollar players on teams, they don't look at players like that without the injury and everything that we've been discussing and seeing the last couple of weeks, but they don't look at these players and think about afterlife. They don't think about that next chapter of life for the athlete.
Bernard, by the way, you may not know, but G played high-level college football. He played at Ohio. He sacked Ben Roethlisberger, this man right here. He sacked Ben Roethlisberger in college.
This is the highlight. He does it. You bring that up more than I do.
Yeah.
I'll take you. You could
That's
be
a
my
good.
agent.
You sacked Ben Roethlisberger. We all hate Ben Roethlisberger here, and you kicked his ass in college.
Miami got the best of us a lot of times. I would say that. It was pretty good.
Hey, Bernard, back to what G said. There's been a lot of discussion after his monologue took fire, and a lot of people saw it. On one side, there were a lot of folks saying, hey, if the players don't like this, they can look to their own vote when they ratified the CBA. How much of that holds water to you? Because obviously, you're never going to get 100% agreement. There were a lot of players that didn't want to put their name to that, but the fact of the matter is that's the playing field, and they were at the table for the negotiations that set that up. What we want to focus on is how this thing gets fixed, because I think it's clear that there are things that are broken. In your mind, being a former player, and DeQuell Jackson, the former Brown, was on with us last week, and he said one of the things that desperately has to happen is there needs to be a sort of consultation group, an advisory board made up of former players that can sit in the negotiations with the current player reps and tell these guys about some of the pitfalls that they don't know are coming in the afterlife. Do you co-sign DeQuell's sort of suggestion of that? And how do we get this to a place where we're more equitable?
Well, I definitely co-signed that, and I was one of the ones. I was a part of the PA when I played, and they did not like me. They did not like my input. But it's one of those things where I was telling them all the time. First and foremost, the bulk of the team isn't voting yes. And why would we vote yes to this? If you look at a lot of the CBA discussions and things of that nature, they're made up of guys that have big contracts. That's what they're made up of. Yep. Those guys, I'm one of the ones where I've always said the bulk of a football team, if you look at 70 to 80% of a football team, they're made up of those 1, 2, 3-year contracts, $8, $9 million, if that. Why are we not guaranteeing that contract? The contract where when you're looking at the NFLPA and guys that are representing the football clubs, they are big contract guys. Your quarterbacks, $100 million guys, $80, $90 million guys, defensive ends, $90 million guys, linebackers, receivers, $80, $70 million guys. Those dudes aren't if they just go be stupid, then they're going to kind of face some of the stuff that other guys are going to face. But most of these guys aren't going to see the longevity that they've seen. They're not going to see the financial growth in the gain that they've seen in the National Football League. So I do believe and they did not like what I said, how I said it, and I don't care. I truly believe what DeQuell said is very true. We need to have former players because these young guys. I don't want to sit here and come down on them because we've lived that life. We understood it. I want them to have fun. I want them to be professional. I want them to be cognizant on what's going to potentially happen to them after their life of football is done, because that window is small. That window, it closes every single year. Right. So they need to understand what they're going to face. So former players do need to be on that. The NFLPA, they don't do a great job representing the players, and it's smoke and mirrors with them, with the bullcrap that they pull in the as far as in the media and everything else. I don't agree with a lot of it. I think it needs to be fixed. It's broken, and it's terribly broken. Wow. And the NFL is running away with everything. And as far as with the representation, as far as from the NFLPA side of it, the guys that are sitting in the office, that stuff, it needs to be done, and it needs to be done right. I think the players are at a disadvantage, and they're taking advantage of the players, and they've been taking advantage of the players for a long time.
Bernard, I'm curious, on an unrelated note, DeQuell Jackson, by the way, in addition to talking about the stuff he also said, even though he didn't know you personally, said he respected you a lot, because he said you were one of the few guys in the league that hit harder than he did. Is that true? Did you hit harder than he did?
Oh, yeah. I brought that bang. Hey, I tell people all the time, I might not have, you ain't got to give me credit. You ain't got to give me credit. You got to call me champ, number one. And what I look to do when I played football, I just look to make people fear me. That's all. I love playing the game.
Your nickname was Bone Crusher, for crying out loud.
I mean, but let me ask you this: when you were at the Ravens, I know you played for 4 different teams, but when you were with the Ravens, obviously there's been different rivalry mixes in this division, but for the most part, for the last 20 years, the Browns have been awful. The Bengals, until the last 2 years, have been either mediocre or awful. The Steelers and Ravens have been good. Was it? Even though division games are all, in this division, kick-ass games, was it totally different playing the Steelers versus playing the Bengals versus playing the Browns?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think they hype up the Steelers, Ravens, and everybody in Baltimore hates. They hate the Steelers. I understand it. For me, the hardest games were the Browns, and I say that I'm telling you right now, the Browns. You look at the Josh Cribbs, you look at the Peyton Hillis, you look at all. For me, that was where I was like, yo, all right, my massage therapist got to come. I need to get in the cold tub, hot tub. I know what I'm about to face. This is going to be, with the Steelers. I mean, for me as a player. I mean, their receivers weren't really whatever. I mean, they were good receivers, but they were smaller. So, you flick them, they going flying out of bounds. I had the biggest problem with the Browns as far as matchup wise. Wow. But when you look at with the city and everything else and what's being pushed out there to the media, it's one of those things where Pittsburgh and Ravens, which is a rivalry. But for me, I thought the Browns was that game. For me, when I was in Baltimore, I loved playing that game. If I remember correctly, we played at night in Baltimore one time. We played in Cleveland at night one time. Both of night games. It was a crazy game, a lot of fun. I had more fun playing Cleveland than I had playing Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Bernard, let me ask you two questions. I asked DeQuell the same question because there's a lot of people. When I said what I said, there's people that be like, "Well, is that really accurate? Is that really true? Maybe it can't be that bad." So I just asked the players that sit in front of me, if today you started seeing symptoms of either CTE or started seeing symptoms of something that was really major and you became disabled, how hard would it be for you to submit a disability claim? What would you have to go through in that? And also, too, your insurance. As a former player, when you're done playing, can you tell me about your journey with insurance and how you go about insuring yourself after your playing career?
So the question about the disability, I think I would. I've talked to a lot of former players, guys that I went to college with that played in the league, and one guy I know for sure has been approved of total disability, and he's receiving checks for that, and he's not. He's not right. And he should be receiving the checks. There have been guys that have, wrongfully filed for disability and got it, and some have been denied. But there have been guys who need it and that have been denied. So we always know someone who can find a loophole and everything else and try to get things. But I really do. I think I would if I was at that point. It is hard because I have, like I said, I've had teammates former teammates and guys I played with in college that they've been denied every single time, and they're trying to hire a lawyer, then get another lawyer, and they're being denied. And the NFL is a part of a lot of this. I want people to understand how powerful the NFL is. The NFL is behind so much, and that's why they try to keep a lot away from fans, a lot away from other people who potentially, if you tickle the ears and if you allow them to be woke in a sense, that's going to turn a lot of people away. The game of football is a game of football. I will play this game again over and over again because this is the decision that I made. I love this game. I love the game. I love this game to this day. I love this game. This game has done things for me and my family. I know what can happen to me. I know what can happen to others, and we all know. So for so many people to say, well, the players knew. Yeah, the players knew, right? But I think when you look at the other side of it, the NFL kept a lot of things back from certain players when it came to medical and when it came to certain things. And that's why lawsuits and things of that nature were filed, because the NFL kept that information back from players and they let them go about it. I'll tell people this right now. For me, if something happened to me, I have insurance, right? But I still go off of some of the NFL insurance. So if something happened to me right now and I just fall out right now as we're talking, you guys wouldn't be able to call an ambulance for me. We literally got to call the NFL number for them to contact and then you got to talk to them, tell them everything that's happening. They got to go discuss it, and then they'd say, okay, yes, we'll pay for the ambulance to get him to go wherever. Now, all of that time, I needed an ambulance, right? So that's the crazy part about it. And there's so many things that I can go in with that. Now, when we talk about the insurance, after the 5 years is done, yes, you are off Cigna. You have got to go find your insurance. We have 4 kids. I have my wife and me. So it's 6 of us, right? So the insurance, we don't know. Most football players don't understand the real world, right? We play football for a living. We don't understand working jobs where we're insured and all this other stuff, and all. We got to go learn that. And I don't think enough is done. I don't want to bring the hammer down on the NFL with this, but I think this is workshops that they can provide for players that are in the league, and players that are in the league need to understand. You need to know how to go about doing that. My wife does a great job. She looked at everything and figured out all this different stuff for us to be able to have, as far as dental and as far as all this other stuff, because as we learned, like, everything's not under one umbrella. You got to go figure out all this different stuff, and that stuff piles up. And so, yeah, it's one of those things, like I said, it's broken. It's broken to completely take a player from, you sweep the rug from under him when he's done, and you say, well, you got a certain amount of time to go do this, and you're completely cut off. And if anything happens, you call us, we'll contact you and set up appointments while you're still just living like hell, right? Like, that's just what it is.
Bernard, I want to go back to what you were talking about earlier about the Players Association. You said you were involved in it, and I don't want to mischaracterize you, but it sounded like you said you didn't agree with the leadership of the union.
Right.
And there's been a lot said and written about DeMaurice Smith and the job he's done as union president. Talk to me about that. What do you think about the job he's done? And it seems like there's been a push to get him out multiple times. How do you guarantee the contracts? Like Jay started to ask you it earlier, I think. How do you get these contracts guaranteed? Because it has to fall on the union. I'm one of those guys that he was talking about. It's up to the union at the bargaining table because the owners aren't just going to do it themselves.
Well, first and foremost, he's been one where, he come in, he talked the talk, and some players, a lot of us talked and we saw right through the bull crap. And he's a lawyer. He knows what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and who to say it to. For me as a player, like I said, I just didn't agree with a lot. They knew I didn't agree with it. A lot of players was like, well, Bernard, we just got to go. We got to get a vote. And one of the things I do not like how they do certain things, they give it to you on Thursday and say we need a vote at the end of meetings. And I'm looking like,
crazy.
wait a minute.
Wow.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You cannot. We're looking at so much that's impacted, right, with us for the next however many years, and then if anything crazy happens, you giving us a day or 2 days, maybe max, to make a decision for not only us but other former players that are involved and other players that are going to come into this league. I don't like that.
That you'll be impacted by for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Bernard, one of the things that we talked about was the calendar, because I think it was DeQuell talked about that too. He said that oftentimes when these proposals are made and these agreements are going on, they're so busy with training camp and everything else. Yeah. Why don't we just start by flipping the calendar?
Because the league wants to put the players in that situation.
They do. But one of the things that I think the NFLPA should insist upon is the termination date of the next agreement should be February, not August. This way, you don't have to worry about a strike either in the middle of the season. Then you've got 6 or 7 months when the players aren't busy working on getting ready for a season or the next game. They can spend the proper amount of time, and they can talk to an advisory board made up of former players that can tell them what you just said. Guys, 5 years from now, life's going to smack you square in the face. And the one thing I want to focus in on, and this is mind-boggling to me because I've had other players tell me the exact same thing you did. Although the league is made up primarily of the 1 to 2 to 3 year contract guys who make far less than your average superstars are making, they're the majority. Yet somehow their voices are squelched in these negotiations and votes by the haves, by the few that are set for life, no matter how much money. They don't need to worry about $5,000 a month insurance premiums because they're making $100 million over the course of their career. How do we make sure that we have appropriate representation from the majority of the players and make sure that their needs are met, not the needs of the superstars and the powerful player reps who sometimes might put pressure on everybody to vote a certain way?
Well, I think that boils down to the players just coming together and saying we're not going to do this. We need to get DeMaurice Smith out. We need to get somebody in that's going to represent us and truly represent us. That's what it's going to take. But I think when you guys look at this game, you guys see it. But for a player that's been in that locker room and in those locker rooms and understand it, the NFL has done a great job as far as putting players, and I'm gonna say this in a sense, at odds, right? You don't really hear big name quarterbacks stepping up and speaking up for the players. Why?
Never.
They're set. $150, $200 million contracts, $500 million contract. What are those guys going to talk for? You know what I mean? Like, what are they going to speak out for? Because they're set. Now, when you look at go to the next level. So for your receivers, top paid DBs, top paid running backs, or linemen, those guys really, they still a part of the clique, but at the same time, they're looking like I'm set. While you got the majority that's looking like, wait, y'all, I'm being looked over. What about me? Because those guys are sticking together because they don't know what's tomorrow for me. What is tomorrow? I can be gone. I mean nothing to them. It's a revolving door for guys like us. So, the league has done a great job as far as separating those players. Just look at it. Look at all of the negotiations. Look at everything that's happened. Look at the lockout in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Look at all of that. What superstar quarterback stepped up? They were proud of being the face of the NFL. They were proud of being on them commercials. They were proud of all of that. But when it came down to stepping up for so-called their guys, this is a brotherhood. Well, yeah, it's a brotherhood, so let's step up. You got your money. Let's get ours. Okay, the 53rd man on the roster might not make $150 million. Well, let's figure out how we can make his life a little bit better when he step in, because that's going to make the NFL and these clubs be a little bit more respectful to them, right? I'm just not going to cut him because his contract is guaranteed. Now, if we do cut him, hey, now it's time for him to double dip. That's a decision that we made. You're doing it with these coaches. You're doing it with coaches.
That's true.
Why not do it with players?
Yeah.
And some players are still making far less than coaches. So that goes back to us talking about the guaranteed money. Like, we need to make these contracts guaranteed. Get somebody in that's going to fight for that. Bring former players in and surround them around guys like DeMaurice Smith. If we can't get him out, which we can if we wanted to, we can get him out. If you talking about taking a stand, nothing against this, because Lord knows we don't want to see situations like this. But everybody wearing 3, everybody rallying around 3, everybody praying for 3, everybody circling in the middle for 3. We got the whole world praying that ain't prayed before. We doing all of this. Why can't we step up and do this for these contracts for the product that's on the field?
That's right.
Why can't we do that?
Football players.
It's crazy.
Football's the biggest sport, and yet basketball players and baseball players do much better.
From a physical standpoint, no athlete puts their body at risk more than an NFL player.
Yeah, I mean, an average baseball player and an average basketball, I'm not talking about the stars, the average baseball player, the average basketball player is making way much more money than the average football player. It's crazy, but I think, Bernard, you nailed it. Like, the star young quarterbacks, Mahomes and Burrow and Herbert and Allen, they could change the whole thing. If those young quarterbacks, Lamar, all these guys, if they stood together and said, not only are we getting guaranteed contracts, because I understand why the 53rd man doesn't want to walk out on the picket line, because if the 53rd man is on the picket line, he's never getting any money because he's out of a job. It's up to the stars, especially the quarterbacks, to say, hey, 53rd man, I got you covered. I'm going to help you if you get cut and never play in this game. But the players are probably going to have to go on strike, I would say, for an entire year and not break the picket line for this to happen. That's what I think, Bernard.
Are they strong enough to do that, Bernard?
The quarterbacks have to lead the way, but they won't.
I agree. Quarterbacks got to lead the way, but I think, for so many young football players, and I said this a few weeks back, and I'm starting to kind of pick up watching football again, and I love the game, but they've messed the game up so much. But owners, they see how players live, right? Management see how players live. They know, okay, they're not going to speak up and do whatever. Why? Because some of these players are living check to check. So if they live in check to check, we know they're not going to step up and
That's
say
what they
anything.
always rely on.
That's right.
Right there.
That's exactly what they rely on.
Yeah.
So it sucks, and it's hard, because as a vested guy or a guy that's retired, they lock you out so fast, and you have no voice, and they don't want guys like that around the PA or around these young boys, because at the end of the day, they're looking like they're going to tell them things that we don't want them to know. And that's the biggest thing. And so that's what I see.
Well, why don't, Bernard, why don't you reach out to DeMaurice Smith? Get together with guys like DeQuell Jackson. Get a group of guys, name players like yourself and DeQuell. And you guys organize a board, and you go to DeMaurice Smith and you say, if you have the best interest in mind of all members, not just the superstars, then why don't you take it upon yourself to create a board made up of former players, so we can tell them that these guys need to know what they don't know. And they can learn that from guys that have learned it and lived it. So maybe you guys, the former players, get together and organize a wing. And you come to Smith and say, we want a seat at the table to make sure the guys playing the game now don't have to live certain ways like we do.
That's good. And I that hasn't been done. And I can tell you guys, one of the big things, and I'm not DeQuell, like we really don't. I've never passed him. I played against him, and I respect him. He was a freaking tremendous player, a great pro. But I think, the problem comes in is players, when they're done, they move on. And, some guys don't talk to each other. I can tell you right now, 4 teams I've played on, in the 9-10 years that I've played, I talk to maybe 2 to 3 guys, right?
Wow.
And that's just, you hate to see that. And it's not like we got bad blood. It's just about life happens.
Life moves
and
on.
So right. And so we've got to do a better job staying connected. And like you said, getting together, and we got to do something. Because,
Bernard, we're going to give you DeQuell's digits. I'm sure DeQuell would love to talk to you. Off the air, McNuggets will give you DeQuell's number, and you guys, maybe that's where the spark starts. You guys come together and you start some sort of movement to get a board of former players to help these guys through the next negotiation, because I believe that this is the catalyst for change. DeMar Hamlin's injury will be the impetus for the league finally being held responsible, and the only people that can do that are the players and the association. I think this is what's going to foster change moving forward, and we'll get you to 12 digits. And Bull has one more question.
I can set that up for you for sure, Bernard. I'll send you his number and email after. Bull, you got the last question.
Bernard, before we let you go, this is the most important question of the day. Will you be sad when the Bengals boat race the Ravens this weekend?
Look, hey, everybody in Baltimore mad at me anyways.
Yeah.
I'm one of them ones where, like I tell people all the time, the Ravens aren't going to win with Lamar. They're not going to win with this scheme that they're trying to.
I like that take. Okay.
That's just what it is.
Bernard's
that's
kind of a hot
what it
take
is.
artist.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't mean, like, I just say what most people won't. And I'm realist. It's Baltimore's got to do a better job. Lamar is a phenomenal athlete, but he's got to learn more at the quarterback position. Right now, he thinks, and they have put him in a position where he thinks he's Superman, and he's doing it all by himself. Yeah, and
that's not how you win in the NFL. Yeah, that's not how you do it.
Exactly. Thanks, Bernard. Awesome.
Bernard,
stuff,
you were awesome, man.
Awesome.
And I'm sure we're going to reach out to you in the future to have you back on.
Whenever you want to come back on, Bernard, we'll set that up. Thanks again, man.
All right,
really
appreciate you guys. Y'all take it easy.
And down the road, I think we should follow up with DeQuell, too, on what happens when they get together.
Yeah.